everyone! Welcome to my channel. I'm Alexa. Today I'm making chocolate chip cookie bars. I've measured out my ingredients and I recommend that you do so too. You can find a list of ingredients and measurements in the link in the description. Remember to watch the video first so you can be prepared. First, I'm going to sift together my flour, baking soda, baking powder, and salt. This is so that there are no clumps when I combine them with the rest of my ingredients later. If you don't have a sifter, you can use a wire whisk or a fork. I use a spoon to push the ingredients through the sifter, but you can use a rubber spatula or just tap the sides. Sifting may take a while, but it is very helpful. After all, no one wants to get a bite of baking soda while they're eating a cake or cookie. Now, I'm tapping the sides of my sifter to make sure that none of my ingredients are stuck to the bottom of it. If your sifter doesn't have a stand on the bottom, then you don't need to do this step. Next, I'm going to put my butter into the mixer and mix it a little to loosen it and make it easier to combine with my ingredients. This step is called creaming, so if you see that in a recipe, this is what it means. I cut my butter into small pieces so it would mix easier. I'm going to cream my butter until it looks softer and not like a bunch of individual pieces. My butter's looking good so far. At this point, I'm going to scrape the sides of my bowl, the bottom of my bowl, and the mixer blade with a rubber spatula so my butter will mix better when I add in my next ingredients. Try to get as much batter off your rubber spatula as possible because it will be harder to combine that butter with the rest of my ingredients later on and create clumps. Now, I'm going to add in my brown sugar and granulated sugar. Some recipes will tell you to cream your butter with your sugars, but I find that butter doesn't combine as well if you don't cream it first. I'm going to cream these ingredients until they look fully combined. My ingredients aren't mixing as well as I'd like them to, so I'm going to scrape down the sides and bottom of my bowl as well as the mixer blade with my rubber spatula. Now I'm going to turn my mixer on a little higher to mix my ingredients faster. My batter's looking good, so I'm going to scrape down my bowl again to make sure. Sometimes when scraping your mixer blade, it is helpful to take it off the mixer. This allows you to see some angles of the blade that you couldn't before. I'm going to clean off my rubber spatula with another rubber spatula so I can get as much batter off of it as possible. Next, I'm going to add my egg to my batter. Before I add it, I'm going to scramble it with a fork. This will help it combine better with the rest of my batter. I'm going to scrape my egg bowl so I can get all the egg out of it. At this step, I'm going to add in my vanilla extract also. In most cases, I'd say that vanilla extract is optional, but for bar cookies it tends to give them more flavor, so I'd recommend putting it in if you have it. Just make sure that your vanilla extract is pure and not artificial. I'm going to scrape out my measuring spoon with my rubber spatula also to get as much vanilla extract as possible. Now I'm going to restart my mixer. As you can see, because we scraped down the bowl before adding the egg and vanilla extract, it's mixing very evenly. I'm going to speed up my mixer so it mixes better. Now I'm going to scrape down my mixer again. Just make sure to scrape down any ingredients that may have went up the side of the bowl. Next, I'm going to add my flour mixture to my batter. Make sure that all the flour mixture goes into the mixing bowl. Otherwise, your cookies might not have enough baking soda or baking powder and won't work. I'm going to start my mixer on the lowest setting so that none of the flour mixture flies out of the bowl. After it combines a little, then you can move to a medium setting. Now I'm going to scrape down my bowl because I can see a lot of the flour mixture has come up the sides. Even though the sides of my bowl are the most obvious thing I need to scrape down, you need to remember to still scrape down the bottom and the mixer blade because they might have some unmixed ingredients too. The bottom of the bowl is probably the most important to remember because you can't see the ingredients that aren't mixed into it. At this point, it is very important to make sure that your rubber spatula is clean because it will be very hard to mix in the ingredients that are stuck to it now later on in the process. I'm going to start my mixer back up again. However, when I start it back, I noticed that there were some ingredients stuck to the bottom that weren't getting mixed in. That means I need to scrape down the bottom of my bowl to combine them with the rest of the batter. It's okay if once you start your mixer up again, you notice you need to scrape the bowl more. Just don't ignore those ingredients or you could have problems later on. I can restart my mixer. This step is looking close to done, but I'm going to scrape down the sides of my bowl one more time to make sure. It's looking great, so now I'm going to add in my chocolate chips. I'm going to mix them in until they look evenly spread out throughout my batter. The chocolate chips aren't evenly mixing, so I'm going to scrape my bowl to help the process go by faster. It's mixing much better now. Our batter looks perfect, so let's move on to the next step. Now, I'm going to use my spatula to put the batter into my baking pan. The batter is thick, so I'm going to press it down so it will be evenly spread throughout my baking pan. There are different methods you can use to do this. To start, I'm going to show you how to use your hands. As you'd expect, you just press down and spread the cookie dough. However, if you don't want to use your hands, you can take a piece of parchment paper and use it to press the cookie dough down. This cookie dough is kinda sticky, so some cookie dough will be stuck to the parchment paper, but that's okay. To smooth the top of my cookie dough, I'm going to use a knife. You can also use a cake decorating spatula, but a knife works just as well. Make sure when you're doing this that the edges of the cookie are level with the rest of the dough, otherwise those parts will bake faster and they might burn. I'm going to put my cookie into the oven. It is preheated at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Our cookies took 20 minutes to bake, but I'd recommend setting a timer at 15 minutes to start because everyone's oven cooks differently. The cookies will be done when the edges are browned and the whole cookie should have a crust on top. It's okay if it jiggles a little. After you take your cookie out of the oven, put it on a cooling rack. After your cookie is completely cool, you can cut it into individual cookies. I cut mine the next day, but you can cut yours the same day if you want. It should take around a half an hour to cool. Before you cut them, use the parchment to remove the cookie from the baking pan. I'm using a heart cookie cutter in honor of Valentine's Day, but you can use any shape you want, or you can just cut the cookies into squares. Just make sure that you press the cookie cutter or knife all the way to the bottom of the cookie. If you are cutting your cookies into shapes, make sure you cut them as close together as you can so you don't waste any. Unlike raw cookie dough, you can't just squish it back together and start over. And there we go! Our cookies are done and looking delicious and Valentine's Day ready. Please let me know what you thought of the video in the comments and how the recipe went for you. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe so you can see when new videos are added. Thank you, and happy early Valentine's Day!